much for coming. So we are pretty much live, and so today's session, is a special session. This will be helpful for those who are in human resource, and this will also be helpful for those who want to audit the HR department. So a very warm welcome to everyone. So thank you very much for coming. So I'm Arun Sharma. So friend, today's session we'll talk about how you can do, it's a special agenda where we have started recently one new division of human resource where we are helping human resource professionals, and also we are doing this trainings every week. And today, the topic is that how you can basically audit the HR and what are the requirements if you look at in the human resource department. So that is our today's agenda. Okay, and before we proceed, I think let's wait for a minute or two. एक आध मिनट और इंतजार करते हैं, then we will start. Okay, but before that we proceed, I would like quickly if you can write in chat where are you attending this session from. एक बार chat में if you can write आप इस session कहाँ से attend कर रहे हैं, it will be best. Yeah, you can quickly go ahead and write in the chat where are you attending this session from. Yeah, I mean location type कर दीजिए. Yeah, we'll start in a minute. So very good evening to everyone. We'll be starting in a minute, and I would like to know where are you attending this session from. Please do type in the chat. Okay, yeah, we have Prakash from Gurugram. Welcome. Abdul, you are from MIDC. Osari, okay. Hiren from Vapi. Very warm welcome. We have Muhel, Mulala Patel. Okay, Kolhapur. Okay, great. So very good evening everyone. एक बार टाइप कर दीजिए फटाफट चैट में कहाँ से आप ये सेशन अटेंड कर रहे हैं. Okay, yeah, Vivek, you are from Faridabad. That's good. Yeah, Vivek, great. Yes. So what is today's agenda? Okay, thank you very much for all the learners. So what is today's agenda? So if you look at this is a new initiative which we have started, in which every week we take some new topic, and this is like HR executive education. Although sub-mastery is running technical manufacturing related course, and that's what we are known for. Sub-mastery already manufacturing related course run kar rahi hai. And this is a new division which was recently started, in which we take every week one new topic. So this is a QMS requirement. What are mandatory QMS requirement? Clause interpretation. We'll talk about mandatory requirements in QMS. And we'll also learn how you can design the check sheet, and we'll look at some case studies as well. Okay, so let's get started. I will also give opportunity where you'll be able to ask me any doubt. So this session is useful for whom, right? For whom this session will be useful? This session will be useful for number one, of course, the human resource professional, HR professional, number one. Number two, those who want to audit HR, right? So jo HR ko audit karna chahte hain, and as an internal auditor, this session will be very much helpful. Okay. So let's get started, and let me share my screen with you. Chaliye start karte hain, and as I said that in between also I'll give you opportunity that you will be able to ask me question. First of all, if you see the human resource department is a critical department, and in the QMS there are so many clauses which are dedicated to human resource. So what is that we are going to focus upon? We are going to focus on the key clauses, main clauses, and let me share my screen with you. Here I go. So although there are many clauses which are there, there are some common clauses which is common across all the different departments, right? But if you look at for example, if you talk about clause number 4.1, which talks about the identification of internal and external issues, right? This clause basically talks about the identification of internal and external issues. Okay, this is common. We see context of the organization. This is common across all the departments. And then there are clauses related to identification of needs and expectations of interested parties, right? For example, if you look at human resource is responsible for identification of expectations from the industry parties. Now, what are the industry parties? Industry parties could be customer, employees, government, right, and society, neighbors. But of course, if you look at like HR, they are like leader for what kind of industry parties. So HR is basically leader and responsible for taking that communication or interacting with what kind of um, industry parties. Of course, employees, yes, yeah, number one, and you can also consider the government, right? And then yeah, sometimes neighbor also, or maybe neighboring companies, or if your company is in the village or a society, like so if you look at like there are lots of responsibilities like lies with the human resource. So uh, of course these are like common clauses, and this is combined with the other clauses. And then of course there is a like a risk analysis one, which is 6.1, which talks about risk analysis. Identify the what could go wrong, or what are the potential risk in the training procedure or the recruitment. You can identify those as well. Okay. However, our today's focus will be more on the major clause, and the major clause is basically is with respect to the trainings, right? That is the major one, and that is something which is highly focused in the QMS audit, either in the internal audit or in the external audit, right? So that is our major focus area. So we'll be covering like and looking at the major clause around the surrounding the training, number one. Okay, and which is basically this clause 7.1.6, and also we'll look at the clause number 7.2, which is like 100% dedicated to human resource. So 7.2 is 100% dedicated to HR, and we'll also look at like how you can make the. We'll look at certain example as well, case study as well, and we'll also see how you can make a check sheet with the help of a tool, right? Very popular tool, Chat GPT. It's an artificial intelligence tool. So we'll look at that, right? So let's get started, and I'll like explain what are the clause requirements, and we'll also look at some places the case studies related to that, and I'll also take your question, right? Okay. So let's get started. If you look at this 7.1.6, it is from the ISO 9001. First of all, the scope is under like 9001 and also IATF 16949 to 116. So if you look at 9001 is your quality management system, and this is basically a generic requirement. 9001 can be implemented by any sort of organization. IATF, International Automotive Task Force, this particular standard 2016 is the first edition. This is more applicable for automotive supply chain, the organizations which is a part of automotive supply chain. So what we'll be doing, right? We'll be covering the clauses of both, right? 9001 as well as IATF 16949. Right, so we'll be covering the clause requirements for 9001 as well as IATF 16949 with respect to human resource, and especially we'll be focusing more on the training. I hope I made my like the expectations clear. So let's get started, right? So if you look at like 7.1.6 organization knowledge, now I'll tell you the very quick, very story, and then I also want you to participate in the chat, because I don't want to make this a one-sided conversation. I want this to be a interactive learning. Okay, so this is a real story. Once one auditor, she was a like external auditor. Okay, she went to audit one company, and that was a government organization and manufacturing company. She went to that government organization. It was a manufacturing company. Okay, and she was doing the audit. So she came across one gentleman, one operator, and there was one critical machine, and that operator was very proudly telling that, ma'am, 15 years back, government of India sent us to Germany, and we bought this machine from Germany, and this is a very critical machine. And before there were two operators, now the second operator has been retired. He has left the organization. He's retired, and I'm the only person who can operate this machine, this very critical machine. So he was telling out of proud, right? So he was telling like that. And then the auditor asked, the lead auditor, that ma'am asked, okay, what do you do, like let's say if you are ill, if you are not well, what do you do? He said, oh ma'am, I don't take leave. Because of this, I have left many marriages in my relationship. and I never take any leave. Even if I'm ill, I will take the medicine. I'll come to the company. So, like, he was telling this, with very much proud, this operator. And when ma'am asked, okay, when you are going to get retired, like when you are going to get retired, the operator said, oh, I'm going to get retired in next 5-6 months. Next 5-6 months, I'm also going to get retired. Then ma'am asked, do you have any alternative? He said, yeah, we will develop that. So when the same thing, like this lead auditor then went to in the plant head, there was like a closing and there was conversation, right? She talked about this situation, that in that this that one machine and that one operator was telling about this. Then Planet said, oh, he's going to retire. So he was surprised. Planet himself was asking, oh, okay, he's going to retire. Okay, no madam, no worry, we'll develop some other alternate operator. You understand the whole context? Now you tell me, what is the gap in that organization? In the chat, please type in the chat. I told you a simple story, a real story, right? What is the gap in that organization which you think is there in that particular organization? Just type in the chat. Whatever you think, right? क्या gap नजर आ रहा है आपको in that particular organization? Yeah, you can type in chat. Yes. Venkat Ramanan. Alternative manpower. Yes, you are right. Contingency was not effective. Yes, what else? Based on this story, like this actual conversation, what is the gap you find? Lack of system, human dependency. Yes, Malala Patel, Prakash, company should have alternative for each. They don't necessarily each, but at least need identification. Yes, Abdul Rajak, very good. So the idea is that need identification. Yes, very good. The knowledge shall be preserved. Absolutely, Vivek. I think this is because you yourself you are an auditor and lead auditor, right? So you know this answer. See, the point is that for that, why this clause came into picture? Because this happened in most of the organization, and you will also agree. Do you know how this handover is happening? The handover is like handover of the responsibilities are like not so good, right? Not good in many organizations. And if you look at like how the knowledge is transferred, like from one person to another, this is also not quite good. So why this clause came into picture? Why this clause came into picture? Because the organization, the ISO or the QMS want that the organization knowledge need to be preserved. It should not be like a man dependent, right? Let's say a man has left the organization and because of him we say the system has gone with him, right? So for that reason, this particular clause is a new requirement which says that organization knowledge need to be preserved. When we talk about organization knowledge, it can be anything. It can be based on the internal knowledge, right? What is internal knowledge within the organization, right? For example, your experience, your challenges, problems which you face in the organization. It can be even external knowledge. External knowledge could be like you're going to some seminar, you're attending some session, or your company has sponsored you for higher education. So that can be your external knowledge. So let's see what is the requirement. So what the human resource, of course, is expected to carry out this in most of the organization, although there may be different people who might be responsible for this. Let's understand the requirement. The organization shall. So wherever shall is written, that's a mandatory knowledge. So wherever shall is written, that's a mandatory requirement. Determine the knowledge necessary for the operation of the process and to achieve the conformity of product. So they need to identify what knowledge is required. Let's assume that your company is going to launch a new product. So if your company is going to launch a new product, or there might be a new process which might be involved. Let's say your company don't have the plating, but you are going to install a plating workshop or plating plating machines. You need to bring that plating process, or maybe the powder coating process is getting established in your organization. So there may be some new process, new product, right? So based on you identify what knowledge is required. You determine based on what. Determine based on what? Based on future product, based on existing manpower, you identify. So basically, it's more like identify what kind of knowledge is required based on the future prediction, based on the existing people knowledge, The knowledge shall be, most important, made available to the extent necessary. So of course, let's say there are some confidential design and drawings that is only made accessible to only few people, right? In the organization, engineering and maybe quality. There are some data like salaries, which is only known to human resource. So to the extent necessary. Now, who will define what extent? Your organization will define, right? To what extent the knowledge should be shared. When addressing changes needs and trends, the organization shall consider current knowledge and determine how to acquire or access any necessary additional knowledge and required updates. So this I already talked about. What is your current status and how you will acquire the next level of knowledge. So note 1, note is always like wherever note is written in the QMS 9001 or IATF, wherever note is written, that's a clarification. Wherever shall is written, that's a mandatory requirement. Okay. Organization knowledge or knowledge specific to organization, it may be gained by experience. So they have clearly written the knowledge can be gained by experience. Okay. It is the information that is useful, used and shared to achieve the organization objective. So the knowledge could be based on experience, right? That's what we say is the internal knowledge. And next, the knowledge can also be note 2. They have explained that clarification. Let's look at that. What is that clarification? Internal source within the organization. I told about intellectual property, knowledge gained from the experience, lesson learned, like things gone wrong, things gone right, some lesson learned in the past, capturing in sharing undocumented knowledge, result of improvement in process, product, services, external sources, standards, academia, conferences, like knowledge gained from customer, external providers, maybe consultant, trainers, audits, like. So preserve this. So this is what is the expectation and the requirement of this particular clause. Now the question is, how can you show this as evidence and what the human resource need to do and what you will check as an auditor? So there are many ways like you can implement this requirement. Number 1, the best way you can implement is that if that's like something which is best. If your organization has something called a learning management system or learning portal, right? That's the best way. Like if you have some learning portal, you can also show that to auditors, or you can also maintain them, or at least you can make a list of organization knowledge where you can keep that. Maybe make this list which includes the standards, which includes the training material. You can make this list. And who will make this? Of course, it is expected human resource maintain this, but yes, it can be maintained individually by different departments. Like say, for example, the maintenance people might maintain this list for their maintenance related standard. Quality people might maintain this list for quality related standard, and the HR people can maintain their list related to HR related standard. So it can be like combined at one place, and it can also be like maintained individually by different departments. Okay. So this is best, like if you can show this kind of learning portal, learning memory system. Many companies have that, many companies don't have this, but it's okay. If it's good if you have, if you don't have, at least you may make this list, right? Okay, so would you like to see an example? Because as I told that we'll also look at case study. So would you like to see an example for this? And this is what I made in 2017, 16, like when the started, IATF audit started and 901 audit started. So let me show you one easy example and so that you get clarity. Here we go. So here it is, right? Organization knowledge library standards. You can simply maintain this. Yeah, you can simply maintain this kind of Excel database where you can update this on quarterly basis or 6-month basis or monthly basis. You can write what are the names of the training material and what is the source, who is responsible, where is this stored, and you can also write that what is the mode of storage. It can be online, it can be offline, right? You can also do that. So this is a very simple way by which you can maintain a list of the. Of course, I'll not go through all the points, but this is the best way that where you can maintain this list and you can update this list at regular interval. The best thing is if you can make a library, or as I said, that if you have like everything in the soft, that is also okay, right? So by this requirements, I think you will be able to like touch or cover clause number 7.1.6. So this is like something which is a mandatory requirement, and most of the people I see, they miss this requirement. So I hope you got understanding how this particular requirement of regarding organization knowledge need to be preserved. Okay, so organization knowledge is a knowledge which need to be shared. It can be internal within the organization, it can be external within outside the organization. The evidence could be based on the learning management system portal, maybe documentation like this, or maybe library, and which also need to be updated on regular interval, right? So I hope you got clarity how to check and implement this requirement, right? So if you have any question, yeah, Prabhu, those who are part of our community, and we do have a membership, so they get this template also. But yes, those who are attending this session live, including the human resource professional, like we'll share this recording with you, right? So don't worry about that. Yes. If you have any question until now, you can ask me in the chat. अगर आपके मन में कोई भी सवाल है, you can type in the chat. Right? So if we are good to go, so let's go to the next requirement, which is, by the way, like main requirement and the critical requirement. And this requirement is basically covers the multiple requirements, right? Which is basically your clause number 7.2. 7.2 is the biggest, like the clause, and which includes the many requirements or most of the requirements with respect to your human resource, right? So yeah, so let's look at the requirements related to clause number 7.2, which is, by the way, a main clause or an important clause with respect to training and with respect to human resource. Although, like, there may be other different requirements, but this is something which is mandatory. Like, you might get non-conformity if you do not follow or adhere to the requirement given in this particular clause. Okay, I'm loading this again. Just give me a sec. Yeah. So here we look at like 7.2. 7.2 is competence. So what is competence? There may be different interpretation of competence, right? Like there are different words which are widely used, like knowledge, skills, right? Can anyone type in the chat the difference between knowledge and a skill, right? Although I don't think it is given in the any ISO standards. Yeah, what is the difference between knowledge and skill? Yes, knowledge versus skills, right? Yes. What is the difference between knowledge versus skills? Yeah. Okay, Venkatraman. Skill is more like okay, work experience. Knowledge is know-how. Okay, very good. Yes. Anyone else? What is the difference between these two words? Like, although I don't think it is written directly in any QMS standard. Yeah. So knowledge is basically yes. Okay, good. So let's understand. Knowledge is more like a know-how, right? It's more like a know-how that you know how this needs to be done, and it's more like a I know how this needs to be done. But skills are more about application of knowledge, right? Where you apply that knowledge and you get the desired result, right? Get the outcome. So if you have knowledge, you know how to write an email, that's knowledge, but how you get use of that, maybe writing emails to customers or the suppliers so that you get your work done, and English, that's a knowledge. But skill is the basically practical application of that knowledge so that you get the desired outcome. Yes, knowledge is more like a theoretical, yes, you can say like that. Skill is ability to handle that or get the desired outcome. Yes, knowledge can be knowing the recipe. Skill is like how you bake the cake. Okay, yeah, Arun, I think good interpretation. So skill is application. Okay, what is this competence? Then what is the meaning of competence? What do you mean by competence? So competence is more like combination of multiple factors. The competence could be a combination of multiple factors. For example, it can be a combination of what? Competence can be a combination of your knowledge, skill, application, and getting desired result. So if you look at like competence is a bigger word, right, which might include not only your knowledge, but it also includes your ability to apply the knowledge and skill so that you get the intended outcome or the demonstrated competence, okay, which sometimes referred as qualification. So if you look at competence, that is something like which can be a combination of your education, your qualification, your experience, your knowledge, your skill, right? So it can be a combination of multiple things. So it's very, very important to identify that and that is a bigger requirement in clause number 7.2 for human resource like HR department. Okay, so let's see the requirement, and mostly like I see HR like they get non-conformity in this particular clause. So is he clause me like they generally get the non-conformity, right? Okay, so the organization shall, let's understand the requirement. The organization shall, so shall is a mandatory requirement, shall determine, so for identify the necessary competence of a person doing the work under its control, right? So the question which might come to your mind, for whom the competency need to be defined. If the competency need to be only defined for the company permanent employee people, or the competency also need to be defined for contractual people, what is your take? Yeah, you can answer in chat. If the competency need to be defined for all or only for the company permanent employee, not for the contractual employee. Okay, Prabhu Gonda is telling only staff, Pradeep is telling for all, Vivek is telling for all. Okay, Venkataraman is telling for everyone. See, the point is like the idea is like whose work can impact. The answer is to this question is that whose work can impact product quality, right? Whose work can impact product quality. If you think that the let's say the sweeper, right? If his work can impact product quality, if he is doing a sweeping work, and if he gets some non-conforming product lying on the shop floor, he pick that and put that in a bin, which is the okay part, and it goes to customer, even that can be a non-conformity. So if that's the case, of course, then yes, more or less like it's of course for everyone you need to define the competence, and especially for those who can impact the product quality, you need to define that. Maybe gardener, the person who's doing gardening may not be directly impacting your product quality. In that case, we don't define his or their competence, it's okay. But otherwise, on the shop floor, people whose work can impact directly or indirectly, also you need to define the competence, right? So in that case, yes, if the contractual people are involved in the making of the product, inspection of the product, handling of the product, then yes, the competence need to be defined, right? So it's very clear, the competence need to be defined for all the personnel. It is clearly written that affect the performance and effectiveness of QMS. Okay, ensure this person are competent based on the appropriate education, training, and experience. So they have given, right? So education, training, and experience. So what do you need to define? Maybe you make some kind of matrix where you identify what level of person need what level of competence. So you can make, this is basically like how you will audit this requirement. The question is how you are going to audit this requirement. So how you are going to audit this requirement? The answer is simple. You simply basically make a competence matrix more or less like a job description, right? Where you identify that what level of person and what level of skill is required. So if you can do that, that will be good enough, right? So or you can define the competence, maybe for what level of person, what kind of skill set is required, that will be good enough, right? So let me see if I can show you some format so that you get better clarity. So let me show you one example of competence matrix. Like you can make this kind of matrix. I'll just show you in a minute, where you can identify that what are the job positions which are available, right? And what kind of competence is required against that job position. So I'll show you a simplest version, right? You can make it as complicated as you want. So here we go, right? So here, if you look at like this simple, yeah, there's simple competence matrix where you identify that for what designation, right? What kind of qualification, experience, and skills are required. Of course, it's a minimal version. You can make it like more detailed and with respect to JD, like. But if you can make this competence matrix like this for each and every position in your organization, that will be sufficient. Of course, you can make it more detailed. Like for example, what should be the competence of machine operator? What should be the competence of assembly supervisor? They should have this competence with this experience, with this knowledge, right? So you can define that, right? So that's the first requirement. So I hope you got understanding like how you need to define the competence, and of course, like along with this, if you have JD, job description, that is also will be good enough. But if you can make this kind of competence matrix, that will be sufficient. And most important is that how do you make this competence matrix, with whom your competency matrix need to be aligned. So this competence matrix need to be aligned, listen carefully, this competence matrix need to be aligned with your org chart. So whatever the designation and the positions which you have defined, right, in your org chart, so this competence matrix need to be aligned. You got understanding how to do this, right? So this is very, very important, right? Yeah. Arun, is it clear? Yeah. Surely. So, and now let's understand more requirement. And now the beauty is that you will see that in this one line or two line, you will identify maximum requirement. You will identify maximum requirement. Now let's understand this. Okay. Now see, this is very important. Where applicable, take action to acquire the necessary competence and evaluate the effectiveness of the action taken. Now see this. In this line, there's a very beautiful line for human resource people and for the people who are waiting, introvert who are waiting basically this HR requirements. So where applicable? So where applicable means 1, 2, take action, 3, acquire necessary competence, 4, evaluate the competence. Now let's see this. 1, where applicable. So where applicable, what you will identify? You will identify the TNI, training need identification. So you will identify that what is the training need identification. So this is like take care of your where applicable, where there's a gap. Take action. How you will take action? What you will do? You will make training plan, right? You will make training plan. You will not only have training plan to acquire the necessary competence. So here you will make training plan, and third you will have training maybe attendance or criteria. Of course, you can add more like list of trainers and all that stuff. And then next is like you will also identify that training. There are many things, like one is immediate training feedback. Of course, that is also there. And then other is training feedback, like training feedback or training effectiveness, like how the along with this training effectiveness, right? So can you see this like like in one line, or you can see this 4, 5, like so many different documentation requirements. Can you like appreciate this in this one line? Where applicable, take action, acquire the necessary competence, evaluate the effectiveness of the action taken. So you need training identification, training plan, training attendance. Along with this, you need additionally you might need training records, training trainer list, right? And then training immediate feedback. And this is your training effectiveness. Can you see this? And retain appropriate documented information as evidence. So can you see this beauty, right? In this one line, there are multiple documentation, and keep that record, right? Okay. Note is for clarification. Note is for clarification. What is that requirement? Let's also understand that. Applicable actions. So what applicable action? Where there's a gap, take action. What action? Provision of training, mentoring, reassignment of the currently employed, hiring, contracting a competent person. So if some person is not competent, you give them training. Some person not competent, you may hire some other competent people. Okay, one thing which you see here, which they haven't mentioned. Can you see they haven't mentioned firing? Although that is also happening in many companies, even in manufacturing companies, that has started happening. Before it used to happen in IT companies. So they have not written firing the person, but yes, that is also one option. But yes, ISO QMS do not promote that. So if you see like what they are trying to say, some person not performing job, then it's equal responsibility of organization. Why that person is not performing? He might need mentoring, he might need retraining, he may be good in some other work, right? So that's the requirement. Okay. So I hope you got requirement with respect to this particular clause, which is 7.2. Let me also show you additional requirements with respect to the IATF. That is basically a supplemental requirement, and then I will show you some case studies. Okay, I think that will make sense. Okay, so that requirement was basically for 9001, 7.2 requirement for 7.2 requirement is for IATF, sorry, 9001, ISO 9001, and these are additional requirements which is basically also required if you are implementing IATF. The organization shall establish, implement a documented process. So what is required it become mandatory in the human resource department. You need to have some procedure for what? Procedure for identification of training, procedure for including awareness and how the competence will be achieved, so that the person achieves the product and process requirement. So person performing specific assigned tasks shall be qualified with particular attention to the satisfaction of customer requirements. So what is required? What kind of documentation is required? What kind of like checkpoint is required? So basically what will you do? You will look at like make the procedure for training, right? Starting from when that training need identification will be done, whether monthly, quarterly, of course not monthly, like most companies do this on 6 month basis or 6 month or yearly basis. And if you look at like what is the input for TNI? Training identification input could be your appraisal, yeah, performance appraisal. It can be the by your senior, right? He may assess that. It can be based on your future role, what future role you will get in your organization. So that can be an input for TNI. Okay. So this is additional requirements. So in basically, if you look at in IATF 16949, what is the additional requirement? The additional requirement is with respect to procedure. That's the additional requirement. Okay, and then there's one more additional requirement. That is basically with respect to on the job training, right? So let's also look at this particular requirement, and then I will show you some case study. Okay, so there's a requirement for on the job training. What do you mean by on the job training? What do you mean by OJT? So as the name also says, right, clearly 7.2.2 on the job training. So on the job training is more like on the job. That means when the person is doing on the job, it's different from classroom, right? So what is required? Let's also look at this. And this is like considered as the most effective way of training, learn by doing. Of course, you need classroom as well. The organization shall provide. So this is OJT, on the job training, is a requirement by IATF 16949, those companies which is basically using this automotive supply chain. Okay. The organization shall provide on the job training, which shall include, of course, if there are any customer specific requirements, that need to be included for personally new or modified responsibilities, affecting conformity to quality requirement, internal requirement, regulatory or legislative requirement. There may be, let's say, for example, a person operating a boiler, he need to be qualified under Boiler Act, right? He should be certified. A person who is working on the high voltage, he need to be certified. In the similar way, is there any regulatory requirement in your industry in which you are operating? You also need to identify that and make sure that person has training. The level of detail required on OJT shall be commensurate with the level of education of the person poses and the complexity of the task. So it depends, like many organizations, like you look at like the OJT or the generally it is can be done. If OJT should be done only for new employees? No, it can be done for, of course, for new, as well as it can be also done for existing employee. It depends, right? For new employees, the OJT will be carried out so that they get to learn about the job and so that they can do their job effectively. And the existing people, if you want to upgrade them, or they may be new technology, or maybe as a refresher. And for how long the OJT, what should be the duration, ideal duration? As such, it depends, right? It depends on the complexity of the task. Like some companies might have OJT for, let's say, 2 to 3 days, right? Some companies might extend this for a month. Some company might extend it for 6 months. Some company might extend this for 1 year. It depends, right? Of course, like mostly it is like from ranging from 3 to 4 days to 15 days, maximum 1 month. But yes, for new employees, that can vary. Of course, for the existing employee as well, every 6 months you can do refresher, or if there is a change in task. So you need to define based on the complexity what should be the ideal duration. So it can range from a few days to a month to a year as well, right? You need to define that. So person whose work can affect quality shall be informed of consequence of non-conformity to customer requirements. So they should be aware what people are doing. They should be aware. There has to be awareness. There is one clause additionally for 7.3 which talks about basically awareness, but in this 7.2.2 they have discussed about this and they are emphasizing on this particular requirement, right? So I hope you got understanding. So what is this? What is that which you need to do? So basically make sure that the OJT is there, and or some OJT system is available in your organization, some OJT need to be carried out, and it can be done for the new operator, but it can also be done for the existing operator, right? So let's now look at some case study quickly so that you get better understanding. So एक बार जल्दी से ना case study देख लेते हैं, and then I will take your question, right? I'll take your question, don't worry, I'll take everyone question. So let me quickly also show you like a case study. And if you look at, like, we basically share this all case studies, editable templates with all the learners who are a part of our online courses, right? We do share with them. Okay, so one thing is like a simple training need identification. So what should be the ideal frequency of training need identification? So that may vary from organization to organization. Ideally, the training need identification can be carried out in a 6-month basis or 1-year basis. Most of the organization where I consulted and helped them in like in 106 companies, I helped them in the implementation part of the various QMS standards. So basically, I see mostly do this on yearly basis, right? So training identification, you can identify, like, you can fix the topic as well, like basic trainings, and you can also fix some technical training topics as well. And of course, the department can also add few specific additional topics as required, right? For example, you can identify for department this QA, this Mohanlal, do they need this training, or are they aware? Or you can also give this number rating system 1 to 4. I'll also talk about that. So this is the simplest way. And as I said, that input for training identification can be performance appraisal, can be done by boss, senior, based on your future role. The input can be defined. And the best part is that why you need to do training identification. What's the purpose of TNI? If you find the gap, you know that what kind of training plan need to be made, how many number of participation. Let's say in 5S, you find that there are, or let's say in Pocoyoke, you find there are 15 people or 20 people who need training. In the 7QC, you find there are 30 people who need the training. So you can batch them. You can create a batch for them, right? So you know, or let's say there is only one person who need knowledge of, let's say 3 people only need knowledge of TPM. Maybe this will give an indication that you need not to plan in-house training. There are 2 types of training: in-house training within the company, and then external training. You send that person to outside to attend the training, right? So this gives you a clear indication, and also you can plan your budget. So this TNI is a very best medium, right, where you can identify what kind of resources will be required. You can identify based on this whether you should plan in-house training within the company or externally outside the company. So this is a very good point for the human resource. And you can also identify, like, these are the topics. Okay, if the internal trainers are available on these topics or not, you can also identify along with this, like you can make then after this a list of faculties, list of trainers, like so. And once you carry out the training plan, you can also update this. Okay, this person has been given this training. Mohanlal has been given first aid training. Mohanlal has been given Pocoyoke training, like this. So you can also update this, or you can use any other format. The idea is that this is very, very important. Mostly people do on yearly basis. You can do on 6-month basis also. And based on this, the training plan is made, the training attendance, all that stuff get followed. Okay, so I hope you got a fair understanding. Okay, let's see some other key format. I'm not going to show you all the formats, but some of the key formats. Of course, there are many formats. Okay, operator skill matrix. So this is the most popular version. Should you make a skill matrix for staff as well? Yes, it is recommended. You should make that, right? But however, if you have identified TNI, that will be sufficient, right? From the audit point of view. But if you can make this skill matrix kind of thing for staff, that will be best, right? If not, it will not be a non-conformity if you don't make it. But you need to have TNI, and that need to be updated. So TNI, in a way, sort of for staff, at least it compensates the requirement of skill matrix. But yes, for operators, it is something which is very much desired. Okay. So here you look at you identify the person, and then this is very popular. I think made popular by Maruti. 1, 2, 3, 4. One is can operate, can operate the with the help. 2 is you can define this one need training. 2, you can say that need can work under supervision, like that. Or maybe 3, you can say can operate independently. 4, you can say can train others. So like this, you can define 1 to 3. What general perception or the interpretation of 1 to 4 is: 4 is like you can train others, 3 is like can work independently, 2 is like have the knowledge and awareness, and 1 is like need training or have the basic knowledge. So you can also define this 1 to 3 4 based on your own interpretation, and you identify that. Then you see that, okay, what level of skill is required in next 6 months, or like what is the training code. This is very important, right? Now listen carefully. Let's say you say that this person need training in packing because I want to shift this operator to a packing department, and he's only at 1. So I need this person need to be given training on code number 7, and or maybe he need to be given training on training code number 4. Like this, you can define, and this also become an input for you for operator training plan, right? So this is one simple way. I hope you got a fair understanding, right, how to do this. And then yes, there are other formats like on the job training. So on the job training is simple. You can, this is basically like you can have some sort of flexibility where you can make it as detailed as possible, but this is open kind of format where you say that the somebody is going to explain the defects, make the sketch, also write a description, take the attendance or the signature, or then also write effectiveness. Of course, for the staff there should be a proper system, proper assessment. That is what is desired. For operator, you can effectiveness can be based upon the feedback by the senior after a month or 2, right? Or based on the feedback from this the immediate supervisor, right? And then if retraining is required or not. So like this, you can also maintain uh, this example. Like this, you can maintain this OJT, and of course you need to give some kind of flexibility in the OJT, like the way I have shown you. Or if you have any other format like that, also you can use. Okay, so I hope you got a fair understanding. Of course, then there are training attendance and training feedback and training immediate feedback, and like feedback by the feedback about what is the practical application of that training, what's the practical use case of that training. So that is basically more you easily find out if you have technical training. For the soft skill training, like I understand it's a bit difficult, but then you can also ask this question: what is the change in behavior? What is the change in that? So that questions can also be asked. Okay. So I hope you got fair understanding. We until now what we discussed about the clause requirements. We understood the how that need to be interpreted. We also discussed that what documentation you need to audit in human resource, and if you are from human HR, then what is that major documentation which you need to make. We also discussed that. Now, before we jump into Q&A, I'm going to show you very exciting application of Chat GPT. How many of you heard about Chat GPT? So Chat GPT is a beautiful tool. It is launched by the OpenAI in November 2022. Last year it came, and very it's just like your assistant. So let me show this. Chat GPT is an artificial intelligence. Okay, it's a more like an AI assistant. So I'm going to show you. Would you like to learn how to make check sheet? And this is useful that if you are going to audit any department, you can audit any department. You can make a checklist, right? And you can do a lot many things. But of course, our focus is more on the Okay, let's see. Okay, how many of you are excited to use Chat GPT? So simply go to chat.openai.com. Okay, sign up with your email ID. It's there are 2 versions. One is free version, 3.5, which is a free version, and then we have GPT-4, which is a paid version. You do not need paid version. A free version is more than is good. So here, like you, let's say the use case presently, you can do many things, right? It's just like your assistant, and it's basically based on the NLP and a large language model. There are some big terms, so we need not to go into depth, but they give you answer like a human. So Chat GPT is basically works like assistant, and they give answer like a human, and then they could do lot many things. So let's use it and make a checklist based on for human resource audit. Are you ready? So what we'll do first, the one thing which is called prompt. What is prompt? So prompt is basically what you are trying to ask. So if you will give good prompt, you will get good answer. It's just like garbage in, garbage out. GIGO. You must have heard this in computer. GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if you get good prompt, good input, you get good output. Okay. So I'm going to give a prompt. That means I'm going to talk with the Chat GPT. Okay. So I'm giving a situation, and that's the best way to give Chat GPT a role. Consider you are working as internal auditor in the manufacturing company, and you are given role to audit human resource department as per ISO 9001 and IATF 16949 requirements. Make the checklist for QMS audit points based on, I'll give them the context, like even if you don't give the context, that is okay, but I basically copy pasted this clause requirements from the ISO standard. So I now what I'm telling Chat GPT, consider you are an internal auditor and little bit spelling mistake, grammatical mistake, they take care of that. You need to correct that, and you need to make a checklist based on what? Based on these clause requirement, based on these clauses. Okay, let's see. So I'm going to give this command to Chat GPT. Work for me, make a checklist. So here it goes, right? Now look at this. Okay, see this, right? Certainly, introverted. No, see this, right? They have given this, right? Introverted focusing on the human resource department. Now they are giving this checklist kind of requirement. Okay, verify competence requirement. Now these are giving question. Verify the organization, identify the necessary competence or not, right? See this, right? How they are giving me the questions, right? Can you see this? Yeah. So if you see this, right? And I think. Okay. So if you see this, right, competence, verify the organization, identify the necessary competence, confirm the competence requirement aligned, and competence assurance, and then see competence acquisition, competence evolution, documented information, right? Okay, now I can also, talk with this again, and I can tell him that, okay, I can also edit this previous command or previous prompt, okay, based on these clauses, and make it in the checklist form. Okay, let's see. So I'm asking that make it in a checklist form, so it will re-edit the answer. Here it is. Like now you see. Can you see this? Right? Can you see this now? I improved my prompt, and now it is giving me. Oh my God! Oh my God! Can you see this? See this? What kind of question? Has the organization determined the necessary competence? Is the evidence of competence? Are action taken to acquire necessary competence? Is process to evaluate effectiveness? Is then you see this? Are action? Can you see this? Like how detailed? And now I can say, okay, can you give me checklist in the tabular form? Okay, with what document need to check in another column? Okay, so it depends, right? Now you see. Now asking, can you give me the tabular form? Like, okay, here we see, here we go. Okay, so see this. Oh my God, what we need to check? Like which requirement and what need to be checked? Document to check. So under each competence requirement, what need to be checked? Can you see this, right? What records? Okay, can you give me more detailed checkpoint with questions to be asked in one column along with subclause, and what document need to be verified in another column? Okay, so see, the point is that you can talk with ChatGPT and you can improve your prompt, and you will come up with the, like, it's always good, like, if you have this conversation, you can come up with a good checklist. Although like whatever checklist you get, of course, like it may not be 100% perfect. And you see this, like, see this is a magic. It may not be 100% perfect, but that will serve as a base for you. So even if you're from human resource, you're from any other department, you can use this same technique for your maintenance audit, for the new product development audit. If you know what clauses, you can simply put that and they can give you this checklist, and this you can use as a reference. Right? How many of you like this and appreciate this? How many of you got some new learning out of this? Yeah, do you think it will be beneficial? Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir, it is beneficial. It is excellent. Yeah, thank you, Rahul. Very good one. Thanks, Prabhu. Yeah, Satish, thanks a lot. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, yeah, Arun Kumar, it is very useful. Satish, very useful. Yeah, it is very good. Yes, you can use this, right? It's free. It's 100% free. Of course, they do have paid version, but you do not need paid version. Okay. So now we have come to end of our session. So in today's session, what we discussed, we talked about like if you want to audit human resource department, we talked about like what are the clause requirements with respect to human resource. We talked about like looked at the interpretation of the clauses. We also looked at certain case studies. We also looked at like if you want to, how can you can use the Chat GPT artificial intelligence to make the checklist. Of course, you can use this as a reference, and that was the main agenda. So I hope you enjoyed this.